All right. Hello and welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to be discussing how to create an engaging lesson infusing literacy and STEM. It incorporates project-based learning, and it really elevates the opportunity to design learner networks, and it encourages space for collaboration too. When students know that they have a network to access, we know that they are really ready to engage and they're more excited in the process for their self-regulation and to self-advocate. So I want to say welcome again. I'm Heather Wertman, and I am from Defined Learning, and I'm an educator in Northeastern Pennsylvania. I spent 20 plus years in the elementary setting, specifically with grades K to 6. And I rolled out Defined Learning about 5 years ago with our elementary buildings in our public school system in Pennsylvania. And I was in charge of rolling out PBL and making literacy connections and math connections, many content connections using Defined Learning and PBL, and work my colleagues through this process. So I'm excited to be here with you today and share some of my personal experiences with you. And I also have Joy Carey, one of my colleagues, here with me. Joy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, and thank you, Heather. It's nice to be with everyone today. Like Heather said, my name is Joy Carey. This is my 20th year teaching English language arts, and I'm a middle school teacher, so I've taught grades 6, 7, and 8 in my 2 decades in the classroom, and I don't think I could picture myself anywhere else. I love middle level learners, and PBL is actually perfect for that age group because they're so active and interested and engaged. So it's really a pleasure. I'm also, I have experience teaching in rural Pennsylvania. I taught there the first 17 years of my career, and I'm currently teaching for the Arlington Public Schools in Arlington, Virginia. So I'm getting the flip side of that and getting a more urban education experience. Currently working on my doctorate in educational leadership, and my focus is how PBL influences the literacy skills for English language learners. So this is an exciting opportunity to share what I've learned and to talk about defined learning. Thanks for having me.
That's awesome, Joy. Thank you. I'm really excited to be doing this webinar with you so we could both share these experiences. So since you mentioned this great experience that you have with ELA and the middle schoolers and PBL, I was wondering if you could briefly explain or describe how you believe literacy can easily be tied to STEM or to PBL, project-based learning, that we're talking about.
Sure. So when you're talking about reading, writing, listening, and speaking, those are your core tenets. They're kind of in a lot of the activities that are related to PBL. Students are working collaboratively. They're solving these authentic real-world problems. They're constantly reading. They're doing research so that they can really, truly understand what they're learning, and they're writing throughout that process. And so as an English teacher, obviously I value that, and I love how PBL allows for that in a lot of different components of what the students actually do. The nice thing is that it allows for revision, so students can work as they go, and improve as they go. So there's learning happening in all facets of the process. And I think it also gives kids an opportunity for choice, that builds that interest in what they're working on, and the collaboration aspect gives students an opportunity to work with others and share their ideas out.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And in just a little bit, I'll share with you some of those elements that you see on the PBL wheel there. And Joy mentioned about that reflection or that revision. I'll show you some things and talk about the Define Learning site, actually using it with the students. But all of these things allow it to be very authentic when you're using it and meeting those real world needs that our students have today. All right, so Joy, from your experience, how could teachers embed or how could they integrate prior knowledge and skills and include these ELA practices at grade level content to accelerate learning and keeping that engagement as a really important process, part of the PBL process?
Okay, that's a pretty big question. So to break it down a little bit, and I'll talk from my 8th grade language arts teacher point of view. So I might be teaching a novel. We do a big dystopian novel unit in my school, and so I want to allow for my students to make those connections with the text, and then bridge that with the PBL, bridge that with the real world. How can we kind of pair these things together? So there's a lot of questions and kind of putting it at a level that they can connect with, and then allowing them to explore what different topics and themes might be coming up in the literature that can connect to real life. So when I do that, the students are evaluating the text, so they're reading, they're understanding it, analyzing it at the deeper level, and they're creating real world solutions that the characters might be facing. So there's that analysis and interpretation of text. They're coming up with solutions. In the case of the dystopian unit, we talk about, what about this government control over society, and try to make that something that they might relate to in today's world, so they can look at potential problems and solutions. So it's kind of a fun way to make those connections between the literature and make that seem relevant, and connect it to real world experiences.
Sure. And so I'll add to that, Joy, that with Define Learning, there have been some great additions just as of recently, really bringing in that literacy connection. We have some specific tasks that are tied directly to some novels or some themes or big ideas, as we like to say. And I'll just throw out a couple that comes to my mind. We have community center director, and that's involved with the Outsiders. I have Lord of the Flies. We have some specific tasks that are created all around these particular novels. Chasing Lincoln's Killer, The Grapes of Wrath. So these are just a few that I could think of off the top of my head that you could really put these practices into play. And if you do some searching in Define Learning, you'll see some of those tasks that I just mentioned specifically in there. All right, so with all of that said, let's get into a little bit of the idea of an assessment piece using Define Learning. So I know with our work with the State Department of Education in Connecticut, they're committed to utilizing innovative assessment practices, and they're really, really focused on evaluating mastery and then adjusting their learning plans based on student progress. So how do you believe that PBL and Define Learning provides support and opportunities for teachers to really assess the student knowledge with literacy?
Sure. And the nice thing about the way PBL is structured is that it's the assessment is embedded in what the students are doing. So it's embedded in the practice. It's embedded in that whole piece of what the students are doing from the start to finish. And it's kind of like a one-stop shopping to target the different learning styles when you're talking about defined learning. So you have students that are all at various ability levels. They are all starting in a different place. And the way defined learning sets up the performance tasks allows the teacher to work with students throughout the process, assess as you go, and then modify as needed. And then the teachers are able to work with small groups as other students are working individually. So it really makes for a nice classroom environment that will allow students to have that personalized attention.
Great. Thank you. And so what you're looking at for the moment, all of those pieces that Joy just mentioned with defined learning, we have built formative, summative assessments, and you could really hit the evidence of learning and making those connections to literacy. Some of the things that we have in this site, we do have many research questions. And I know at the elementary level, I like to talk to my own faculty about these, or when I'm doing some professional learning with teachers all over the country, I like to tell them they're built in there. I know at the elementary level that we need some sort of outline or a little push, if you will, for this evidence and this research that the kids need to do. And we supply some questions right in this site to kind of help them along, nudge them along, if you will, because I hear so many times, oh, my students still need extra help with doing the research or to get going on this PBL task. So it's really nice because there are questions built right in, and then there are student check-ins, and this keeps the communication going on, and it's very positive and it's very effective. It's just little check-ins, just like I would do face-to-face with the students. This could be done within the program now as well. And always we have the rubrics according to the products that they're going to be completing and providing feedback there. So thank you so much, Joy. That was awesome.
Sure.
And go ahead. Sorry.
I had a question for you, Heather. As the school year begins, we as educators have a responsibility to re-engage students regardless of their starting line. So can you provide us an example of how you intentionally integrate PBL through defined learning in the classroom learning plan so that students are exposed to problems that are solved using multiple strategies while they're also integrating concepts of literacy? I know you have a great story to share here, so I'm excited to hear this.
I was going to say, wow, you talk about a big question. That was huge. Yeah. All right. So I am so happy to share with you. I get very excited to share my personal stories. What you're looking at right now is a performance task that we have in our site, and it's simply called Backpack Designer. And I have seen so many different content teachers use this one because it's very adaptable to whatever content you're doing. So I would just like to share a personal story so you could kind of see how we got started rolling it out. And I'm hoping you could take some of these little pointers or tips and use it with your own students in the classroom or with colleagues of yours, whatever you feel comfortable with. So what happened was we wanted to make some connections, and we wanted to be very innovative in our idea of rolling out PBL, like I said. And this was specifically K-6, but this is easily adapted to middle school, high school. We wanted to help our students really conquer the skills of character traits and improving comprehension skills, and making inferences with a novel. So this, one of my students that you see in the picture here, I was working with some fourth grade teachers across the district in all of the elementaries, and they were using the novel Because of Winn-Dixie. And we wanted to hit all of these skills that I mentioned to you a moment ago. And we wanted to use this task to bring all of these elements together. We married together, if you will, PBL elements and our literacy skills and practices at the same time. And remember, it was part of my job. I wasn't just in the classroom. I was an innovation teacher at the moment when you're at this picture you're looking at here. I was charged with the fact of bringing the fourth grade teachers together and showing them how to go through PBL process and using this novel at the same time to really engage students and allowing students to have voice and choice. So what happened was the ELA teachers at that grade level, they started off their novel and they did some journaling and they were keeping some good notes on the characters and everything, all the elements that the teachers were laying the foundation for in their classrooms. And then over time, the teacher would check in with me as the innovation teacher. We would all come together, the ELA teacher and myself. We would work it out in our schedule, and I would really take them through the PBL process. So students had these journals and they were keeping a track of their characters, detailed information. And we moved on to the technology end of it, working in groups, because the students weren't really used to it. They have learning centers, they've done that, but they weren't used to working through the PBL process in that collaboration or critical thinking or problem solvers. So we did allow them to work in groups, and we were creative in our group selection too. And the students had some choice to select a character that they have been reading about in the novel. And they designed a character web, but we brought in that technology piece of, they created a Google Slides presentation from their character web. They would bring in all the traits, and then they had to put a little slide presentation, make sure everyone in their group was very familiar with the character, and they all added to that slides presentation. And they really did that for knowledge on their own, a little background information for them. They use that prior knowledge, and then we were adding skills to it. So we introduced them at that point to defined learning, and we started walking them through the process. And as we went through the process, we set the stage for them, and it's built right into defined learning. What we did was showed them a video that had a clear career connection. And they met Chris, who was a backpack designer for his, and I like to say to the students, because I'm using their words, that's his real job. He's really a backpack designer. They didn't realize that that could become a career or a job. So we had them engaged right away. We showed them this quick little 6-minute career video from Define Learning website to really motivate them. And we didn't have to do much. They wanted to start the research process right after that career video. And they wanted to start learning more about their character that they were in charge of becoming an expert in, to deliver this to their target audience. So we moved on and we completed a product from Define Learning, which was a blueprint or a sketch, if you will. We're meeting all different learning styles. You could hear this coming through. So we had somebody as note taker. We had somebody as the artist in the group. We had someone that was the speaker in the group. And they took on these roles. And I've done this different ways where I assigned roles, or the students just naturally took on these roles in their groups. So they completed this product, which was the blueprint or the sketch of their backpack. And then they were moving towards a prototype, which it was a really cool experience the first few times for me. A lot of the students, now remember, this was elementary, they really didn't understand what a prototype was. So it just brought on so many more layers of learning throughout the PBL process. So we moved from the blueprint to the prototype, and that was the young lady you saw on the previous screen. That was her prototype on her back that she had created. And then they had to create a presentation. They had to bring in a lot of this oral speaking and communicating skills. and they had to do a great presentation in front of their peers, but then many grade levels, real audiences within the elementary building. And that's what really made it real for them. So we hit everything in the PBL process that you saw in the wheel there, but then just a couple of bullet points that you see on this screen here, it was very authentic. The entire task from the beginning was authentic, but we brought in all the design thinking, the communication, and collaboration. And I keep mentioning these certain parts in Define Learning. I would just like to take you there only for 2 minutes. And I would like to show you, how easy it is to go ahead and take a task and really make it authentic and really bring in the ELA practices and elements. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the backpack task that I just mentioned to you. And I just want to show you, I'm in the teacher view, and we have all the information for you. Here's an introduction with a driving question for the students.
Heather, excuse me, I'm still seeing your slideshow. I'm not seeing the web. Not seeing me.
I'm so sorry. Hold on 1 second here. I apologize for that. Are we good now?
I think so, yes. And in the meantime, I'm also going to add the link in the chat to the Define Learning website.
Perfect, great. All right, so as I understand, so all of you have access to Define Learning. And as I mentioned, I just wanted to show you how quick, how efficient it is, how effective it is to use with your students and really personalize it to bring in those literacy elements. So this is the backpack task that I was just talking about, and it's set up for you. You don't have to do a ton of customizing, but I just want to show you how easy it is to do with your students. We do include an introduction about what the students would be doing, so taking you through the PBL process. Remember, I mentioned about a career video, and the students love it. I know my personal students love it every time I show it. This is the career video, and we have guided questions in there. Now you could see there's a variety of guided questions on the master task, as I like to say it. But when I use this with my students at the 4th grade level because of Winn-Dixie, I go ahead and change these guided questions to really customize them to the video, what I want to pull out for literacy skills. But then it's right here in Explore the Background. This is where I really go pull the products. And I mentioned to you that the 2 products that we used, the 4th grade teachers and myself, we did the backpack design, that's the sketch and the prototype, and we did the presentation because we really wanted to hit these ELA elements. And I said you could customize this. So it really is as easy as clicking customize and saving it, the backpack. And I'm not doing the photo story or the cost analysis. I said I wanted to do the sketch and I wanted the presentation. So this goes ahead and saves it for me within the site. And then it allows me to edit it. So as I was saying to you, the students love the career video. So I use the career video every single time. And I always keep something tied to the career. Okay. But let's say I'm an ELA teacher and I really don't want to point out the science technology. I could if I want to, but I really don't want to talk about those parts of the job. Maybe I really want to customize it to the communication, the speaking, the listening, the reading, the research that's involved in his job, right? So I would just delete that question. It removes it, and I can add my own question that really focuses on ELA or what I want to include there. And then the other biggest part to really tie this into literacy is going to be the grasp part. So what I'm really engaging my students with, I could edit the goal. So I'm saying your goal is to create a unique backpack that your company will want to manufacture. This is where I changed some of the structure here, some of the sentences to really include those ELA elements that I talked about and their Winn-Dixie character. So it's as simple as that to go ahead and customize and add in the particular character traits or whatever it is that you're looking at. Remember, I said about the research questions? We include some questions right in the task. So you as the teacher don't have to worry about going to, find extra research questions. You could add them in there, but you don't have to worry about it so much. And then here's those products, just like I was using. And I included a list of the character names from Because of Winn-Dixie, just to give them reminders, as our students need. And I edited all of this. Everywhere you see blue dot, turns it to doc, and you could go ahead and customize it that way. And without me going through every single part, all the tabs on the left-hand side, we have additional research resources in there. And then when the students do create the products, you have some decisions to make. You have voice and choice in this as the teacher as well. The students could go ahead and they could upload their products. So that blueprint that I was talking about or their presentation to the group could be recorded, and they could upload their products right in the Define Learning site. Or you could do this simply by, they could turn in their paper pencil blueprint or their sketch to you. So obviously that's a personal choice at that level, what you would like to do. All right. So I just really wanted to share with you, the task and what it looks like in the site. Now, Joy did mention earlier when it came to the assessment piece, the check-ins or the questions and keeping things informal or formal. We've got those right in here for you too. So again, we offer more than enough to make those literacy, those ELA connections or the connections with any content area if you wanted to collaborate. If Joy is my ELA teacher and I have someone else as my math teacher and we wanted to collaborate on this, we could pull out a product like cost analysis for the backpack, and my math teacher could work on that, and Joy could really work on those literacy or those ELA connections. So I know that we've approached it in the different ways that I'm mentioning here. So that's the actual site where you could go in and find that backpack task. Or like I said, you could go in and do a search for some of those performance tasks that we have that are directly written for those novel connections, like I mentioned earlier with the Lord of the Flies, the Outsiders, Milkweed, and the Holocaust, specific ones if you're looking for them.
So Heather, I think in what you just shared, you talked a lot about how teachers can connect defined learning to their classrooms. If they're trying to plan their teaching and learning through an acceleration lens, is there anything you might suggest for how they can connect their existing scope and sequence to performance tasks through integrating defined learning? And I love the backpack. I love the backpack design project. It's awesome. The kids look like you were really having a good time.
And it really could be customized to any content area. So I think that I shared a lot when I was just in the Define Learning website. So to really use that lens and connect their existing scope and sequence, I think if you think about some of those things that I shared in the task, really customizing the grasp, who their audience is. So I mentioned my story about the backpack design. Well, the students really, you see this picture that you're looking at now on the screen, they're doing their oral presentation. And This was more of, I'll call it a practice run, and they were doing it for their own peers here. And you could see some of them a little more excited than others, right? And they also knew that many pictures were being taken. But I just want to say that all the tasks could become authentic and customized in those ways that I was just saying to you. And really, your lessons could be adapted within defined learning to meet your scope and sequence. Yes, Irene, did you have a question?
I did. So this is what we think about a lot too, is like, how do I marry this resource and the substantial, robust content here with what is expected at the district level or in the classroom? So can you just expand a little bit on like the searchability of defined learning? So if I'm a user and I go in and I know what my district curriculum is expecting of me, like particular standards, then when I'm in defined learning, maybe not doing it by theme, but maybe by standards perhaps, so I can see how the two marry. If you could just expand
Sure.
on that a little bit more. Yeah.
Absolutely, no problem at all. Let me get back into the defined learning site. All right. And it's as simple to go home. Let's say I want to do a search again, like Irene was saying. So I could go to my home right here, or the D up at the top will always take you back to the home page. And there are a couple of ways you could search. And I'm glad Irene asked that, because I knew there was a backpack task. But as a new user, maybe you don't know, and maybe you're looking for specific standards like Irene is asking. So you could search by content area, and then standards are within there. Or you could start with a standard search. So over on the right-hand side, when you get logged in, it's search by standards. And you could go ahead and choose your grade level. So across the top, you could see the different grade levels here. So I'll just pick something in the middle of my elementary mind that I have. All right. So I'll just go ahead and pick third grade. And you could see that I'm on some language arts standards. Now, my screen might look just slightly different. The setup is the same as yours, but mine is a national account with defined learning. So you'll be looking at some national standards here, but all of your standards are on the left side of the screen. So depending on who you're working with, what content area, you could search. You see that we have them here on the left-hand side. Okay. So if I want to go ahead and narrow my focus of my standards down here, you could see that I clicked on the little plus over on the left-hand side. Okay. And you could really see, I have to move this around. Sorry, everybody. Okay, so depending on what I'm looking for. So you choose your grade, you choose your standards, and then over on the right-hand side here, it will say correlated tasks. So what are the tasks that we have that could meet right here, I happen to be on oral language, listening and speaking. So then it goes ahead and it shows me that I've got a task, ancient engineer Roman roads. And it even gives me some products that my students could complete in here. I've got assembly lines and again, the products. It gives a basic description, but then you could go ahead and click on it and it takes you to the task. And if I keep scrolling down, you'll see even my famous backpack product design came up there. And then these are all live links, as you could see. When I go to click on it, it will take me right to the task. So I picked a different one this time, just so you're not constantly looking at backpack, but this one was assembly lines. So you could go ahead and this is the main screen and you see those tabs. The site is set up the same exact way, very user friendly as that one I showed you earlier with backpack and the career video. Let me just show you something else here. I showed you the broad way to search by standards, grade level, content area. But let me go ahead and let me just pick product here, demonstration. I'm going to click on demonstration. This would be one of the products in assembly lines that the student would be using. And if I scroll down as the teacher, the rubric is here. So I know we talked about assessments. So we do provide rubrics, but then look over to the right here where I'm scrolling over, standards again. So if you want to double check your standards for a specific product, you could see that the standards are laid out again. And remember, I was in grade 3. That's why you're looking at the specific standards. And we were talking about the oral language, listening and speaking for language arts. But it works the same way, whatever standard you are looking for. So many areas that you could see those to really tighten this up to match your standards that you're trying to hit. Was that helpful, Irene?
It was, thank you. I think it just further shows how this can be a great resource to supplement what's happening at or what's expected at the district's level, and can act as kind of like the culminating. It could act as the lead into your particular unit or a midpoint throughout. So I appreciate that with the alignment to standards.
No problem at all. Please ask anybody on the call if any questions or anything I could show you. I'm happy to help. And, I do want to piggyback off of something Irene just said super quick. If it is your first time venturing into defined learning or a task or simply putting it all together with your scope and sequence, what's expected, meeting standards, and using PBL, I'll make a suggestion. Choose a task and simply use it with the career video, some guided questions, and maybe just one product. You don't even have to do one product at first. Maybe it's simply getting the students used to some of those 21st century skills the first time around and getting into the site and just dabble in it. Just baby steps, little steps, one at a time. All right. So, does anybody else have any questions or comments right now?
There was a question in the chat, Heather.
Okay.
Oh wait, it just went away. Hold on.
I can repeat it since I typed it. I was asking if there's a way to post these activities within your Google Classroom.
Absolutely. So there is a simple, I'm sorry, I should have stayed right in the website so I could show you. I can't say this enough, very user-friendly. So I'm still on this assembly lines task, but again, the site is set up the same. It does not matter what task you're in. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just pretending. I will just say that they're doing a prototype and a demonstration. So I'm going to turn off my other products so my students don't see all of these products. This is just the teacher side. And when I get in here, I was telling you that I could edit the task right there, right? I'm in customize. You could share in Google Classroom right here, this tab, assign share project. And what you could do is assign it directly to your students. This syncs right to your Google Classroom. And you would just hit add student. And you could tell mine are fictitious just for this little presentation and webinar, but it might be as simple as I want all of my students to have this, my Big Bang Theory students. I would just say, go ahead and assign it to every single one of my students. And I have many of them in here, and I would just add them. And it pushes the link right out to my Google Classroom. It syncs right to it, Jillian. Okay. Yep. And the students would just get the link just like they get any other notices in your Google Classroom. All right. I'll stay here for one more moment. I apologize. I didn't stay on the site before. Anything else? Wendy, are you wondering anything? We're good?
No, I don't. Thank you. I appreciate seeing it again because I haven't seen it in a few years, but that does bring it back.
Yes. Great. All right, so let's get back to just the end of our PowerPoint here. And I think I talked enough about the presentation, you get it, but I can't say enough. I'm very proud of my students and using PBL because it was new to the district a few years ago. And Define Learning, Define STEM at the time, they were called Define STEM. It really was our main resource to roll out PBL with all of our teachers. And I can't be more happy than using this resource with it. All right, so moving right along. Joy, I was wondering if you could talk to us. I know you have really vast background with ELL, English language learners. How do you see STEM, project-based learning, the ideas of literacy supporting teachers and ELL students?
I think this is actually an excellent tool for working with English language learners. My school in Arlington is actually 50% of our students are ELL. So we have a lot of needs that we need to meet. And as good teachers, we're obviously looking to reach all of our students because that's what we want to do. And so we have this population that's growing exponentially throughout the country. And I think there's a need for teachers to really have some tools to access so that they can best meet the needs of these diverse learners. And so I actually just read an article recently that kind of flipped the narrative on it. And I thought it was really interesting because they talked about STEM and how instead of talking about what English language learners might struggle with, what can they do when they're presented with something like a project-based learning opportunity, something that the Defined Learning program is offering. So you already have small groups, which allows for collaboration, and for English language learners particularly, that creates a safety zone for them where they can practice their listening and speaking, they can practice their reading, and there's a comfort level for them when they're working with their peers in that small group space. There's also plenty of time for them to revise, and whether they're working with their group partners or whether teachers are working in small groups with them or one-on-one, there's a lot of time to kind of build in that improvement along the way. And when you have them allowed to have that voice and choice in their project, it's nice because they can tie in the background knowledge that they come with. And that was kind of what this article was talking about. They have all this background knowledge that may or may not be connected to what they're working with at that particular time. So they can bring in things that create that authentic experience for them. And the other nice piece is that their understanding of the content can be demonstrated in multiple ways. So it doesn't have to be that everybody's creating the exact same thing. They can pull in their creativity, and that makes Define Learning and PBL an excellent resource to work with that unique student population. That happens to be near and dear to my heart. I love my English language learners, so I'm excited for them.
Thank you. And that really is a large population, so you have some great experience with it. So, Joy, I think probably a final question to wrap it up. Can you share why you would want to use Define Learning as an educator?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that's so great about it is that Define Learning, everything is provided for me as the teacher. And, kind of what you mentioned earlier, Heather, depending on a teacher's comfort level, you can modify it to do just a little bit as you gain confidence, or you can maximize what the software, what the tools have to offer for you as a teacher. So it's really wide ranging. It's easy to use. Everything is provided. It's just a matter of getting in there and kind of getting your feet wet with it if you've never used it, or building on what you've already done along the way if you're more on the expertise scale on things. So, it provides those real world connections, and I think kids really get motivated by that. It's fun, they're interested in it, and that's how they learn.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joy. I really appreciate it. I like listening to you. I enjoy it every time. You share a lot of practical insights, and I love listening to your experience of how to incorporate literacy and STEM and PBL through the use of defined learning. And we saw so many opportunities to adjust and enhance the learning process for students and to keep them engaged and excited while offering them many opportunities. Because really what's most important is our students' success, of course. So your ideas really help to reinforce this commitment that the Connecticut State Department of Education believes in and the support for all educators. With all of that said, Irene, I wanted to thank you so much for the invitation to talk about this today. And I was wondering if you wanted to share any final words before we wrap up for today.
Sure. First, thank you, Heather and Joy, for giving us your time and your expertise and the relevant practical experiences in the classroom. I think that's what makes it come to life. I would also add that we're truly grateful for this partnership because of all the reasons you just mentioned, of putting the curated resources like that we can use with confidence in the hands of our teacher colleagues that in some way can elevate what they're already planning and thinking about, but also to make their lives just a little bit easier. And I think these resources, like you said, voice and choice, that's near and dear to my heart. So I think if teachers have time to really dig in and see through the lens of where they teach and the kids that they teach, how do I meet them where they are, right? How, if I know what has happened to them and I understand their strengths and what they're now ready for, then I can match them to the appropriate content. That doesn't have to be defined by grade, but again, that starting line, like where they are. So I hope that our teacher colleagues take advantage of the resource, even to take time to learn more of how to make it work and supplement what they're doing in the district level. So thank you again for your time and energy. It's truly appreciated.
You are very welcome. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today, everyone that's here with us and everyone that'll be watching the recording. The final screen that you see up there, we do have an email address if you need more information related to Define Learning or if you need any more support with it. All right. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.